Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Minecraft Peace podcast. I am your host. My name is Katerina Newbury, and it is my true honor today to have David Olcott with me as my guest. Hello, David.
Hello, how are you?
I'm really good, and so excited about our conversation. And I know people use that word a lot, but I actually am, and a little bit nervous. I will admit, but it's all good. And thank you for joining me from Denver. I am in the UK, so I really appreciate you scheduling this in your busy calendar, busy diary, and yeah, make it happen.
It's wonderful to be here. Absolutely an honor.
So I will introduce David a little bit so that you know who you have the pleasure of listening to today. So David is a founder, president, and the CEO of Samurai Success. Samurai Success is an international executive, organizational, and personal coaching firm based in Denver. And David has had an extensive coaching career across, I think, 35 years now, maybe longer than that, both in the US and Hong Kong. And also, I understand, spend time in the political arena. So we may talk about that a little bit. But David also recently wrote an amazing book, which is called Swords of Illumination. And I want to express my thanks because I was gifted this book by yourself via Ryan. Ryan is my good friend and coach, and that's how we connected. So I say hello to Ryan this way and send my thanks both for the book and for the connection and introduction to you, David. Is there anything else you'd like to add to the brief introduction?
No, but Ryan has spoken just wonderful. You and I have met, of course, just prior to the meeting kind of stuff. And I'm just looking forward to our conversation today.
Yes, let's get into that. So looking at you, dressed in a very executive manner, obviously knowing about your career as an executive coach, one might think that, oh, here's just a very successful coach and we're going to have a conversation. But I can tell you now that David is just not your usual type of coach. There's a reason why his company is called Samurai Success. So let's start with that. Japan and the path of the samurai seems to be a theme throughout your work. The book as well. Maybe enlighten us into why samurai, why Japan?
Yeah, early in my career in sales, actually, I read a book called Samurai Selling. And in that book, there was a really interesting term, which I was introduced to at that time. And it was called being samurai. And, of course, when you imagine samurai, for most of us anyway, seeing the movies and books and tapes, and, you imagine this warrior that walks around with a sword and doing justice and, this whole romanticized part of that. And that's not the part that really captured me. What captured me was earlier in my bringing up through the church, there was a pastor in my life, and his name was John Smith, right? But he just had this remarkable way of looking at the world. And one of the key things he said in one of his sermons one day was that the greatest life you could live, was being in service of another. And that it resonated and haunted me at the same time, because I was like, well, how the heck can I take care of me if I'm so busy taking care of everybody else? And so that stayed with me, right? Haunted me kind of stuff. And I'm reading this book and it's talking about samurai. And in this verbiage, loosely translated, samurai means in service of others. I was like, holy crap. There's a metaphor for me here. There's a way for me to connect about being someone and being very resonant about focused on helping other people. Well, once you get into the world of the samurai, you understand that the world of the samurai, were so focused on discipline
Mm,
of and toward mastery. And that mastery wasn't being in service of others initially. It was about taking care of you. It
mm,
was about finding out who you are, making sure you're doing all the training necessary to be able to truly be there and present for other people. And
mm,
today we talk about how to work on yourself so you just get the hell out of the way and truly be present for people as a coach. So
mm,
all this stuff really mixed so beautiful into my identity for who I've chosen to be this lifetime and the company that I wanted to build, which was about helping our coaches truly work on themselves so they can truly be present for their
mm,
clients. If you don't do that, by the way, you've got your stuff. So let's say you and I are having a coaching session, right? And I've got all my stuff, I haven't worked through it, and you say something, I spend the next half hour explaining, yeah, and this and that, and I've done this experience and this, and that's not helping you.
mm.
It's about working on me still. So my job as being samurai is truly have worked on me so that when I'm with you, then I can truly be present with you and be of service to you. So that's how it all came together.
I love that. And I'm fascinated by the country of Japan. I don't know about nowadays, but it gives me the impression that a lot of what historically they would, as a culture, focus on are crafts and activities and disciplines that really do are about mastery, about craft, about, really dedicating yourself to something, be always the student. So if you look at calligraphy, martial arts, ikebana, all of that is very mindful activities that take a lot of patience, a lot of time as well, and are not necessarily about the end result. So that's fascinating for me, for you to say that as a coach, because nowadays still a lot of, I imagine also a lot of the people that you work with are work in a culture that is focused on the end result, on profits, on products, and there is no focus on the journey at all. So I wonder how you marry that up in your work with your clients. How does it work? So you've got all these, successful executives, and now you come in with this approach.
And it's a very different way of approaching life. There's no doubt about it.
Mm,
Focusing on the task, focusing on getting the result, and then you measure yourself kind of I have to do this in order to have this, in order to become this.
mm,
So I have to do work to have money to be successful. And that's how most of us on this planet are driven. And I was like, well, I was following that path for a very long period of time. And yet, of all the wealth that it created, the fitness that I had, the motivation that I had, I wasn't happy. I wasn't
mm,
fulfilled. So
mm,
you have all this money, great. What are you doing? I mean, how are you really filling a life of purpose? And I didn't find that until I found a new way to take that same do, have, be strategy. And I was introduced to be, do, have.
mhm,
And I know that sounds really, well, gosh, there's the same things. Sequencing is important in this physical realm. Change one of those aspects that totally
mm,
changes your experience of things. There's a critical path if you're going to be successful and driven by those results. But if you take a look at nature, what's the end? What's the end goal of all this stuff? Is that we're going to transition to something else, right? We're going to die. And
mm.
so that shouldn't be our focus. It's about how we live. The
Yeah.
journey toward that end is what the very successful people on this planet do. Now, as samurai, one of the very first things you had to do was you had to contemplate your own death. Now, I know I'm being a bit dramatic here, but stay with me.
Mm,
So
mm,
when you contemplated your own death and you were like, this is how I'm going to choose to die. I'm going to die on the battlefield. I'm going to die this way, whatever. But you actually contemplated your own death. It freed you of the fear
mm,
of that death. And that is the very first step in beginning to live a life of purpose. You have to
mm,
face those things. You have to get into your brain because what you resist persists.
mm,
What you
mm,
face fades. And so if you face your fears, And the only way to do that is to know who you are and truly take it on. Like, hey, I'm going to take this on as a warrior, right? Not a worrier, right? I'm going to face this truth that's going to happen to all of us. We don't want to talk about it. Face it. Let's talk about that, because once you realize there's this end thing that's going to happen, whether you like it or not, it
Mm.
gives you a new level of facing a new possibility and permission to live life to its fullest.
Yeah. Yeah. A few years ago, I found myself in a meditation where this just kind of came on, and I had to, I guess, experience what it would be like not to be in this body anymore. Um, and that experience together with others have made a difference. And I think for me, it was more that I'm not saying I know how I'm going to react when the moment actually comes. No one really knows. But just to have somehow lived through it, at least in this meditative experience, it's been I wouldn't say complete transformation, but it almost made it a bit easier to live this life. Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely something about in our culture still is something people don't allow themselves to kind of even recognize or think about, give any attention. That's how we treat people at the end of their days. We kind of try and push them into the hospitals and not have to deal with it, but to integrate it as part of life, that would make a massive difference. There is one teaching, if you like, or quote that you talk about a lot, which is we're not here to, I might paraphrase, correct me if I don't get it completely right. We're not here to kind of find out who we are, but to create who we are. Did I get that right?
Beautiful. Yes, absolutely.
So I'd love you to talk about a little bit more about that. And before you do, I completely get this now, but say a few years ago, I would probably be really trying to understand first who I am. I wouldn't be ready to step into that notion of, okay, I can actually create who I am and then take action and take steps to do that. So maybe you could comment on both of these stages, maybe they are, yeah. Or maybe not. I don't know.
You're beautifully advanced in your thinking already, because this whole idea about understanding this principle. I'm not here to discover who I am. There's no pre-written thing that sometimes our books, seminars, well-meaning people in our lives have said, you got to find out who you are, as if there's this magical tablet written somewhere that says, Katerina is this. And as soon as I find that tablet, oh, now I know who I am. And now I'm being dramatic here. But this was what it sounded like to
Mm,
me. I was growing up.
mm,
It's like I was on a magical hunt. God had put something somewhere, a magical tablet that I had to go on a search and find out that thing. And then I was watching people not on that journey that were being very successful around me. And I was like, well, what's the difference?
mm,
And I started recognizing something. Now, I didn't have that full articulation until I was studying with masters of spiritualness and things like this. And they said this theme over and over again, where you are here, the one single thing that you get to create while you're here. Now, for those of the audience that are control freaks like myself, my ears went, what? I get to control something? The one thing you get to create and control is your identity. So no longer is it a search for me looking out there for who I am. This is a technology to be able to create internally and then express that outwardly so that people have an experience of who you say you are. And that's what this
mm,
whole place is designed to do. In the spiritual realm, my understanding is, and by the way, every one of us is going to find out if I'm just not, making stuff up here. We're going to know this eventually. So we just have to understand how we're going to get there anyway. So the spiritual place that we come from doesn't have the opportunity for us to experience things,
mm,
because you are the light there. You are the complete of everything. There is nothing that is not you. So this whole place, this physical realm, as my understanding is, was designed for us to have a place as a soul to come into this avatar, this meat machine, so that we could then express and experience that divinity in this space, something we cannot do in the spiritual realm. This is an incredible, magnificent place that we've forgotten about. And we've got to get reawakened to that beauty of this place. So once you understand that what this place is designed to do, it's singular. From a soul perspective, this physical realm is designed, created for you and I to come and experience that which we say we are. Pure creation, pure creation of the physical plane, and then creation of me in the physical plane to have an experience of that, something I cannot do in the spiritual realm. That is a powerful message. How you express that is a multitude of variances, right? You could be a doctor, you could be a lawyer, you could be a nurse, you can do all these things. These are the vehicles in which to experience yourself. But the very beginning of that is that we get to create and choose that experience. And for me, I totally forgot that. Totally forgot that. But when it came to me again, it was so powerful of a message. It resonated so completely with me that I couldn't get off the path. It haunted me, as I wrote in the book. It just grabbed hold of me and wouldn't let go. Thank goodness, because I wanted to talk myself out of it plenty of times, but it just stayed with me. And it's kept me on this adventure this whole time.
Well, there's so much you've just said. I'll try and come back with it with a few comments. And for anyone who maybe is new to hearing, you know, such a perspective on life and death and beyond, there's just reflecting, I guess, on my own journey. There comes a phase when you say, accept that, okay, we are not just this body, and yes, there are other dimensions, and you know, life doesn't finish when you die. And then you get into a phase where you're like, you know, we're given free will, and we are incredibly powerful. And like you've just described, we have the ability and to create, well, anything really that we wish. So the realization of like, yes, I have this power, it can freak people out because it's like, oh my God. Or like just deter because it's like, this is too much, I can't comprehend this. And then, yeah, you spend some time working that out. And then there's the application of like, okay, so I've embraced this, I've embodied this, and what do I do with it? What you just beautifully described. So say our samurai has got to this phase of knowing he or she wants to create. And now that I've said she, another question popped to my head. So I love that you mentioned in your book, well, Swords of Illumination, the fact that samurais are not only men, are not only males, but also females. And I will admit, I don't know whether you talk about it in more detail in the second half of the book, but would you say maybe through your experience working with women or just taking your ideas about it, about what you know about women, is there a difference to the samurai way, the samurai path, the application of the practices, the rules that is different for women samurais?
So the women of Japan were trained as warriors, and they had to protect it because when all the men were out doing these battles somewhere, the houses were left unguarded. So someone had to protect. So the physical warrior samurai that you and I are talking about right now is different from what I'm promoting from the psychological or the part where you go, what is the principles of being samurai and truly being in the service of others? How do I get there? So it doesn't matter if you're male or female. Those are
Mm,
contextualizations within this physical realm. When you and I remember we're divinity, then being in service of others is easy. It's when our ego creeps in and we start
mm,
putting things into these categories, and this goes here and this goes here, and another, these things can't meet. And we've developed this whole world of this or that.
mm.
And we talk about this in the book, where in this yin yang symbol right behind me, and
I was
that's
going to ask about that.
right,
Yeah.
is that this and that exists
Mm,
simultaneously in the spiritual realm. It's the human being and our interpretation of those things that creates a lot of this confusion. So even if you're inspired by your soul about something, that still has to come into what we call programming. Your subconscious mind
mm,
holds this stuff called programming. By the time you're 7 years old, every single context that you have in your life, every subject, money, relationships, how much you're going to weigh, what you're going to look like, feel like, your disposition, your personality,
mm,
all of us have been developed by the age of 7 years old into these things called programs. So when we run into, I mean, because people say, well, how do rich people, teach their kids to be rich? They've been in the environment, they don't know how to not be rich. They've been in
yeah.
this mental thought process. They
Mm,
just don't know it because they've not experienced it. Well, that's something actually is called programming.
mm,
And that programming teaches you over and over again how you're already going to be making decisions when that other subject comes up. So if money ever comes in your life after the year, 7 years old, your programming, subconscious mind or brain says, this is how I'm going to handle that. These are my strategies. These are my behaviors toward that,
mm,
even if they're not successful in getting where you say you want to go. Now that's interesting because this programming really, well, we're talking about free will here. See, a lot of these things, like we think we're making decisions all day long about our world. Truth is that programming is telling you what you're going to do because you, right? Know thyself. And if you're anything like me, and let's just take me for a minute, then I run into these, I started recognizing these patterns, Katerina, that whenever I was running into a situation, I would get hooked by this stuff. I'd get angry. I'd get some kind of
mm.
emotional. And I mean, it would come roaring out of me. And I was like, who is that? Who is that person? Like, it's like, that's not me. There,
Mm,
what just did I say?
mm,
That's not. So all of a sudden, what was happening was this theme. When I was going out in the situation, I thought I knew who I was, and then I got hooked into
mm,
forgetting who I was.
mm.
And that was a fascinating moment for me because it kept happening. And by the way, I'm incredibly stubborn, obviously, because I don't seem to get things right away the first time. It takes me a while to get it, but once I get it, I'm pretty dialed in. And that theme kept happening over and over again. And I had to start taking a look at, hey, what's causing me to do that behavior once I get hooked? And how do I change that? Because I don't like that behavior. It doesn't represent who I am
Mm,
anymore.
mm,
So what's the end of the conveyor belt? Because I see the behavior happening, I see the event happens, I see the behavior causing, and I get hooked. I can see the flow chart, the pattern of it. What's causing it? And this realization brought us to this thing called programming. So if you want to make more money, for example, let's do this. Let's imagine your belief systems. Once you enter this physical realm, you enter in this amazing place that we just talked about, the magnificent beauty of it. But everything in this realm is simply a belief that you
mm.
hold about that subject. We confuse that as the absolute truth of it. Like my belief is the absolute truth about this subject. That may be true for you, but it isn't the experience of other people. That's an interesting facet because it can work for you and it can actually work
Mm,
against you, right? So as I started taking a look at what was triggering me to cause me to behave this way when I didn't want to behave that way, whether it was toward money or other people, or I was driving in traffic and someone would cut me off and I go, brah, where was that coming from? And so the Swords of Illumination is that journey for the last
mm,
35 years of understanding the elements of that program. We talk as spiritual beings, as human beings, that we have this free will. I will tell you that's not been my experience, because my free
Mm.
will wouldn't have told me to react that way or behave that way to that event. I'm being triggered. Is triggered being free will? By the way, the world is yes and not either or. See, I almost caught myself, right? Like either
Mm.
or. It's this and. So
Yeah.
I wanted to find the source of that behavior.
Mm.
And finding that source of that behavior allowed me to change, because remember, behaviors are tied to your results in this lifetime. If you don't like the result you're getting, you've got to look at the behavior that's
Mm.
causing the result. There's a correlation between, there's a complex equivalent, an equal sign that says, hey, I can see the results. I don't like that, but I really don't want to change my behavior. Well, the definition of insanity doing the same thing over and over
Yeah.
again and expecting a different result, behavior result. There it was in the equation. So if I wanted to change the result, then I had to change my behavior. But
Mm.
that wasn't the end of the equation. That wasn't the end of the conveyor belt.
Mm.
What was causing the behavior? Well, there's feelings, there's perspective, there's all these belief systems, values, questions, and there's a way that it actually sequences together to create a program. And that program is what's stored in your unconscious, your subconscious. So you and I are having this wonderful conversation at a very conscious level using the conscious part of our brain, but that's not my program. You know, you've met people that show up with their face one way, but all of a sudden you get them in a different place, and all of a sudden their behaviors are very different from the face they
Mm.
presented.
Mm.
You and I both do this. We all do this. We want to show up with our best face. You're going into an interview, you're dating, you're going to put on your best behavior. But then, after the dating and the honeymoon phase, you kind of get into your, whoa, that wasn't the person I was dating. That wasn't the person I was interviewing, right? It seems to change.
Mm.
So these are all demonstrations of programming. So the question then became, well, if I'm truly divinity, I'm a child of God, then I would have the power to change that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I do that, what does that structure look like? The Swords of Illumination are my interpretation of the 12 elements of that program. So if you really want to change the experience of your life, this is where you got to get to. And that's
Mm.
where being disciplined around mastery is about working on you. And these are the insights, principles, concepts, and tools to help you focus on that structure of who you say you are. When you change that, everything else in this place changes.
Yeah, we create our own realities now.
We
I've
do.
had what you just described, kind of, I had a similar journey, but as a parent, so my children would bring up many, many situations that would trigger me. And I was the type that, yes, for a while was just, well, first wondering, why the kids are doing it, then realizing that, there is something about my reaction that, is not what I want. Then there was a phase of, yeah, I need to change my behavior, but how? Because it's the subconscious. And it's been many years and it's ongoing. And yeah, it goes back to a lot of inner work, a lot of reflection. But it starts for me with awareness, just either being gifted with some kind of inner awareness or finding moments for self-reflection, to pause, to, yeah, kind of look at your behavior. Um, and it still seems it's not something that people kind of do. A lot of us still kind of live on the just conveyor belt of whatever the day brings. So what's helped me greatly is a daily meditation practice. Yeah, I've been over time getting these aha moments, light by moments, or I just saw a perspective that I couldn't see before. It's been wonderful. Highly recommended to everyone. And what I love about samurais and the martial arts culture as well is that meditation, self-reflection is at the core of what they do is I don't know about where you learned. I didn't say you were black belt, and there's a special type of black belt, second grade
Second degree.
black black belt in Aikido. And I noticed, at least where I live, that this aspect of the art, that's why it's called a martial art, is not really passed on to the kids that they learn. It's very much about just using the force, not so much work with the energy and the mind. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about how Aikido and meditation, I don't know if you meditate, how that does it have a place in your life? Do you do, what do you do for yourself for, self-awareness and reflection? Yeah.
Oh, yes. I have so many different rituals about this. Studying martial arts, I actually took 20 years off from Aikido and just got back into it last 4 years. And I'm also studying the art of drawing the samurai sword, that kind of thing. And all those things are great practices around principles and concepts and mobility for my body, because I want to stay really active as I get older. So, but I love the mentalness of Aikido.
Mm.
I don't want to learn a martial art to go fight more. I used to fight a lot when I was younger. I
Okay.
moved through that phase. I thought I was doing it for the right reason, but again, it wasn't changing anything. It was just making me more angry. As a matter of fact, even after I won a fight, I always felt so bad because I'd hurt somebody else.
Oh, okay.
And I was just broken by that, and even if they attacked me, or I just, it was driving me crazy. It was like,
Mm.
how do I get to a place or my own self-identity that would stop hooking me for the need to fight? Listen, inside of me, I'm very thankful for if something were to happen where my family was challenged or something like this, and I needed to come forth as
Right.
that warrior, it's
Mm.
in me. I know it. I do not have to question it. I don't want to bring that out anymore if I don't have to, because it's not how you see me now. That's a different place within me.
Mm.
But if I needed that, I'm so thankful. I know that that's there.
Mm.
But I do not study martial arts, and I haven't for the last 30 years kind of thing, with those 20 years kind of break. But all those years of experience about calming me down so I don't get triggered. So the best martial art, seriously, the best martial art for me today is working on me and
Mm.
who I want to create as my identity. In the world of Aikido, it's about blending with each other. And you're using the other person's energy. It's a defensive art. Where karate or jujitsu, something like this, are much more offensive art. It can
Mhm.
be defensive, but someone attacks and I attack back, and whoever does a better attack wins. And we see a lot of that in corporate America, right? With management and employees, right? I'm
Yeah.
going to win, you're going to win. It's just a constant conflict.
Mm.
In Aikido, the conflict still exists, but you, as a master of the universe, if you will, I know I'm being bold here, but you take that energy and you blend with it, as
Mm.
opposed to going right at it, kind of stuff, which only creates more and more escalation of conflict. And the only way I found to do that for me was de-escalate the conflict within me. Because when someone comes charging at me and just rah, screaming, yelling, oh my God, I was triggered. I was like on, rah, and I needed to scream back. Today, it's about they're
Mm.
screaming and yelling, and I realize, oh, they're asking for help in the way they know
Mm.
best. Because we're just kids. All this programming, by the time we're 7 years old, we have all
Yeah.
these strategies about how to deal and get your attention. And if, oh, you're not paying enough attention to me? Let me yell louder.
Yeah.
Let me put some funny wheels on my car to get your attention, some loud music. We're all doing this stuff for attention, Katerina,
Because
right?
even negative
Oh my gosh, yes.
attention is still attention, isn't it?
Still getting
Yes.
your attention.
Yeah.
By the way, I don't need to tell you as a mom about how negative behaviors can get us positive attention, right? It just, it works. And once it's proven to us as human beings that that strategy works, I continue that strategy until it doesn't work. So the best martial arts strategy is about me working on me. How I approach that is from a philosophy of being a samurai, of being truly disciplined to mastery. I'm not working on me to impress you. I used to do that, but now it's not about impressing you or even impressing me. It's about doing things that really represent who I am. And that experience is so completely different than this result driven, let me get something of you, let me impress something, let me work this angle. It's just a very different level of peacefulness is the best way I can express it.
I love that you just said that, because my podcast is called Minecraft Peace. So all of the
Ah,
conversation that I that I hold with people are around, how to make life and this world more peaceful, no matter what people do, really, bring it into family life, bring it into corporate life, education. Yeah, it's about that creating that inner peace from which you don't react, isn't it? Because what you've just described to me is like embodiment of like non-reaction. So how do you get into a non-reactive state? Is that you really need to feel calm within so you don't react. And by the way, parenting is a very good training ground. I highly recommend it. It's not for the faint-hearted. And but if you, yeah, it's I love how many parallels we've like found between my journey as a parent and me now supporting other parents, and what what you're describing for yourself and how you apply it with your clients. I love it.
that's so
What?
wonderful you just said that in that
Yeah.
dimension, right? Because that's where in this physical place, there's multiple dimensions. Like I can be a parent, I can be a lover, I can be a friend, I can be a daughter, I can be a husband, I can be a brother. Like there's all these different places. But here's the thing. There's only one of me showing up in all those different dimensions, all those different roles. So working on me to show up in those things is the greatest gift I can bring to this planet.
Yeah.
Because if I'm always my best in every one of those things, and it is possible, this isn't just some pipe dream. I can be my best me. I'm not going to be the best at something. I'm going to be the best me in something. And that creates that purpose that we're talking about. So when I can truly show up here with everything else I have going on in my world, there's nothing more important than this moment right here with you. Nothing. And you and I feel that frequency of that connection. And that's peace, where there's nothing else going on but you and I in this moment. There's nothing else more important than the conversation we're having. If more of us could do that on the planet, this would be a different place. How to get there? My recommendation, my thought process, my experience so far is the only way I can do that with you is how I show up here. So imagine this. If I wanted to guarantee there were brownies at the holiday party, what should I bring to the holiday party? Brownies. In life, if you take a look at the place where I was not peaceful, I was always going to the party expecting the brownies to be there. And when they were there, I was fine. Oh, somebody listened to me finally. And then when they weren't there, I was very upset. It's a metaphor, but it's bigger than that, because if you just make sure you're bringing brownies to the party, then you're always reaching your goal. You're always reaching your result. You're always reaching your rules. You're reaching your expectations. You're not having someone else provide that for you. So as long as I show up as full as possible, it's easy for me to help you and be in service to you. But the moment I don't have some part of me fulfilled, then I'm going to be desperately looking for somewhere else. And that never solves the thing. That's our ego driving us to solve things through getting something out here and bringing it in here. The masters have spoken very clearly about this. We're not listening very well, at least I wasn't, that you got to bring it from in here out to there. And how that journey begins, how it works, is from a place of the Swords of Illumination, the elements of that programming. And when you can work on you, again, it's the greatest gift you can bring to this planet. It's not based upon your ego, because you're truly reaching it for the service. I'm going to work on me so well, so masterfully, that I can get out of the way so I can be present here for you.
And working on yourself also includes that the element of self-care and self-love, because that was kind of my starting point, was that I really actually needed to attend and learn to attend to all of my needs before I could then go out and be of service to others, to first my immediate family and then kind of wider community. But until, yeah, it wasn't until the point I was aware and consciously fulfilling those needs that I was able to do that. So there's another parallel to being a parent. And I want to, something came up as you were talking, which I love in the book Swords of Illumination, because the Yoshida main character is, you know, he's the hero, he's the main character of the book, but I also love all the other characters around him, and especially the father and the mother, who actually you don't spend long talking about them, but they actually are, me looking at Yoshi's story as a parent, actually crucial to him kind of becoming who he is, because they laid the foundations. And yeah, I'm not going to reveal too much, but the way the father passed on what he modeled, which is, I think, is crucial.
Beautiful word,
Yeah,
yes.
what he modeled, because it wasn't about what he said, what kinds of advice he gave, what, you know, wisdom that he learned. It was, and Yoshi kind of finds out about his life kind of as the story goes on. So he wasn't just a farmer, but you know, I'm not going to say anymore. And yet being a farmer then proved very important for Yoshi. And then the mom, who is just in the background, but you can tell how much, how strong, how beautifully she fulfills the role of the mom, because she respects, doesn't interfere with the decisions the men in her life do, even at a very crucial point of the story, which proved to be the last time she saw her husband. There wasn't any of, you know, don't go. It was very much like, you know, I know what might happen, but I respect, this is the duty, this is the service that my husband now needs to kind of do. And then also letting her son kind of go off and on his journey, not really knowing what's, you know, what's gonna happen. Yeah, I found that fascinating. Was there an inspiration for you for these two characters, or was it just your idea of what parents should be like?
I will tell you that the reason that I wrote the book was incredibly selfish on my part. I don't know if this is going to sound reasonable and rational to you, but I know I've been here before.
Mm.
I don't know why I can say that to you, but I know I've been here before, and I know I'm coming back. I just
Okay.
don't know why I know that, but I faced my fear. I was afraid of all the knowledge that I had learned, the experience that I had, and I had a pretty rough life growing up, but a wonderful life as well growing up. But there were some moments there where at this moment of thinking about my transition is like, I'm going to lose all that knowledge. So the clever part of me was like, what if you didn't have to? What if you could apply and the situation? What if you wrote a love letter to yourself and had that published so that when you got back here, you could pick up that love letter and start anew from a very young age? Or more incredibly, that someone else picks up that book, takes it on as a level of mastery and really evolves it to the next level. And I come back and that person then coaches me on that material that I pulled
Oh,
through.
wow.
Come on, if we want to get imaginary, let's get crazy, right?
Well, I was
So
thinking more along the lines of, like, you know how we forget everything when we come back.
got
So
it.
imagine you would have this and you'd build on it. So you don't start from scratch. You build on it. Yeah.
And then you come
Love
back, you read it again, you're like, oh, and it will resonate with me. I wrote it so
it.
that it would resonate with me because it's a story in there, right? If you give me all technical textbooks and stuff like this, I'm like falling asleep every 10 minutes. But technology wrapped into this story, this mythology, this odyssey, is what really intrigues me. My favorite author of all times is a gentleman named Og Mandino, and he was a master at crafting beautiful life principles into this mythology story. I mean, it obviously, because you're reading the book, you can see that characteristic in there. His mastery of it's just magnificent. So just to be in his shadow is a wonderful moment, because I just had a gentleman say, well, you're the next Og Mandino. I was like, oh, I know. It's like a moment. It was like, oh. So I was just very honored by that. But this is exactly why I wrote that, so that when I got back here, I could start from that, which took me all this period of time to get this and gain this knowledge. Then I could start from that starting point, and who knows how far I could get in the next lifetime. So I didn't have to lose it. So that book, though, let me be really clear, I didn't write that book. I channeled that book. That information there is so powerful. I've read it over 35 times, because you're editing and stuff like this, right? You're going through all the different characters. Ooh, that doesn't fit there, and you're having to. I will tell you that by reading this, I get insights every single time I read this. And the reason for that is some fantastic books in my life. As I've evolved, the material changes in those books I've read. And it's a really wonderful thing, because my interpretation is what's causing that book to change. It's my experience, my interpretation. So as I evolve, the book shifts, the meaning shifts, even to a point where I'll skip over one section and just and I'll go back like, I don't remember reading this before. What is going on here? And it's all about how I'm coming to the table, how I show up. What do I bring to the table is how that book changes. So it's a wonderful opportunity for me to be able to understand those principles and get going sooner.
Just conscious of the time. I've got a couple more questions. We'll see how we get on. I know that with the book and your latest project, which is around focusing on the youth, that's very close to your heart, and you would like to somehow create an opportunity for young people to kind of take this teaching and work with it. Could you tell us a little bit more about that idea?
So unbeknownst to you, you're kind of getting into book 2.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
So we're writing that as we speak, kind of stuff, and that will be published hopefully in the beginning of next year. But it's a 2-book series. The first 6 swords are in book 1, and the second 6 swords. And by the way, those 6 swords, the 12 swords together, are what we teach today and have done over the last 20 plus years of sharing with people about how to remember who they are, creating who they are, and then living a life. So we've really focused in the business world, especially in America. If you really want to change someone, you've got to find out what's really the change element. And I spent time at banks and law firms and stuff like this, and politics, as you had mentioned before. And I will tell you, politics was not the place that was going to change this place. So I was looking for a venue to be able to do that. And if you want to look at ways to change things in the States, it's about business. So by providing these principles and technologies to business owners, the way they're changing their perspectives about truly being in service of the marketplace, truly being in service to their customers, as opposed to truly being in service to get the money or just doing this. It starts to shift. And what's interesting about it is they actually start focusing on the customer and the marketplace. The money's the easy part, where they've been focused on the money, and then they were really battling with their customers. We just switched it. You can only focus on one thing at a time as a human being. What should you really focus on? What's going to get you the end of the result? So using that conveyor belt strategy is, what's our approach, and what's the philosophy is going to do this. So when business owners, when self-employed people, I should say, they've got to work in their business. They've got to be able to be there every single day, because if they're not there, quality control or profitability changes. So it's like one of those things, well, I'm self-employed, I've got a job. That's great. I can do this. I can make money. I can make a great living. But truly, people who want to become business owners have to have a totally different mindset, skill set, tool set that doesn't exist the same way in the self-employed realm. You have to think completely different as a business owner.
Mm.
A business owner, in our world definition, you can leave your business up to 3 months at a time and not have it affect quality control or profitability. Now, that is the dream for our entrepreneurs. They want to be able to do that. They want to have multiple businesses. They want to scale without losing the quality or the profitability that goes along with things. We actually help them do that through a very structured approach, using these principles as the underlying tone for building that foundation of stone as opposed to sand, and then building the empire on top of that strong foundation. That strong foundation is the executive team and the way they think about themselves.
Sounds amazing. Mm. So where do you see America? I know there's a lot going on at the moment. Say America in 10 years' time, taking your efforts to change the country via the businesses and the business owners. What do you think America will look like in 10 years' time?
Well, we've got a lot of things going on in the country, of course, as you know.
Mm.
We've got a lot of things that we've got to solve. I can't tell you about a clear vision of that because I really keep myself away from doing this, being attached to an outcome, having expectations.
Let me rephrase that
Yeah,
then.
thank you.
What would you like America to look like in 10 years' time?
So as we've got to remember who we really are, and we've got to be connected back to source. We've built America based upon the foundation. It's pretty obvious, I think. I'm not going to rustle too many feathers here, but we've based it upon our ego. We've got to learn, we've got to remember that we're not just all ego. We've got to bring, and by the way, so many Americans they're just the quiet majority of Americans. And we've got to bring able to bring our spirit back to life and integrate that into our business and our families and all the things. We got to bring that spirit back into that. And the only way I know how to do that is through myself and through each one of us individually. That's why the focus is on the technology, not about necessarily where you want to take the technology, but the technology exists to be able to support you where you want to go. So this idea about really getting back to this trust in ourselves, right? If I'm using my ego and I trust that, then I'm going to continue to build America as it is. Yeah. If I start bringing my soul into the conversation, it doesn't allow for the stuff we're doing with our ego. A lot of the stuff will stop overnight, but we seem to be, like I am, very stubborn in making those changes, even when we see the powerful results of those things. So the idea here is my job is not to be able to change the world. I'm not here to do that. As a matter of fact, I kind of get a little bit peeved when people say, I want to change the world, and the world is working perfectly. We just have to understand how it works and how my input into that world is creating this place. So if I want to change that place, I found the source of that change, and that starts here. And very high level people, very successful people, we might call them, know this intuitively. They've had some kind of mentorship. They've remembered who they really are. And they're bringing an integration of both the soul and the ego together, not just one or the other. Because here's the deal. Why are you dressed like that? You're talking about spiritual things, Dave, because this is a practical world. There's the beingness and the doingness. If I sit around meditating all day, right, Katerina? If I'm sitting here meditating all day long, and that's all I do all day, people will start coming in and taking my furniture. You're not paying your bills, you're not eating, this physical plane isn't about all this spiritual stuff we're talking about. It's about using that spiritual energy in a physical plane, and we have forgotten that. So my hope is to be able to provide an opportunity for people to remember that we are in this place to have experiences, but we're not of this place. We're just here for a short period of time. We're not owners of this place. We're stewards of this place. And we need to start acting like that before the planet's just had enough with us and kicks us off the planet again, because this has happened before. Won't be the first time. It'll be happening the first time in our experience, but it's not the first time the planet has kicked all humans off the planet, right? It's just how it works. So my hope is to provide that opportunity, especially would love to start working with kids. And book 2 really talks about this, because the first book you hear about the School of Aspen, where the training all happens. In book 2, you hear about the Samurai Summit. Samurai Summit is a school I've envisioned. I have maps all over the place in our corporate office here. That is a visual location where we've built this Japanese buildings on 650 acres of land. I've got a whole model for it and everything else, where kids from all over the world come and teach learn these principles. And I bring in absolute top level masters and speaking on these contextual fields around money and relationships and male female dynamics. And they come into these places, and these kids have an opportunity to truly learn at the school with all these high level opportunity ideas to really be able to shift how they're going to approach life.
I love that. So one last question to conclude our conversation. So say someone feels now really inspired to make changes, or really kind of, start the journey, but they don't really know where to start. What would be the step 1 you would recommend for them?
Step 1 is you have to understand about this physical plane, that if you're going to change a behavior, you got to understand there's structure to that change. Structure is everything. And if all these ideas that you and I are talking about are just kind of going floating around your room, you're not writing anything down, then they're just going to float around your brain, and your brain's going to do one of 3 things with that information. Oh, I'm really excited. It's going to delete that information, it's going to distort that information, or it's going to generalize that information. That's what your brain does. So if you get an insight from this podcast, it goes, oh, I'm so excited. Write it down immediately. Step 1, write it down, put it in front of you, because you're going to forget. Yeah. Listen, you and I have forgotten our complete divinity. You're telling me you're going to remember something 5 minutes from now, like what you had for breakfast, or a number, or something. Oh, I have a fantastic memory. Listen, you have forgotten who you are.
There's a reason for that, though.
Yes.
That's for another conversation.
And that reason is so you can have experiences of things. Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
But here's the deal. If you want to continue having the same experience, then don't write any of this stuff down. It's just going to keep showing up, and you're going to feel these feelings and these experiences. But if you want to shift, then you've got to put a constant reminder of who you say you are in front of you. Now, here's the exercise that changes it. Just by writing that down isn't enough. You got to make this practical. All these spiritual concepts, you got to make it practical. You got to put structure to them. That's what this physical plane is designed to do. So the next step is take your calendar, take your planner, your calendar, whatever. And I'm serious. Now, write down who you are in different subjects of your life. Who are you in money? So in the book, it calls role distinctions, the sword of roles, right? And in that book, it talks about these different roles that you have. Write down who you say you are in those different roles. Or you as a mom. By the way, when you go into a church, are you the same person as you are when you're in a nightclub? Yeah. Let's hope not. Because there's probably going to be some prescription medication, suggested to you, right? You're going to have different behavioral skill sets when you go in those different environments. This is about consciously creating those. Who am I going to be before I go into the doingness of something? So remember those things where we talked about earlier, when you're walking in and all of a sudden the kid's room is unclean and you get triggered by it and you freak out and you're like, didn't want to do that as a mom or a dad. Prior to walking in the room, and the room's going to be the way it is because your kids are pretty predictable, and you walk in there, you go, this is who I'm going to be before I walk into the room. Being, doing, having. When I go into my car today, why I do not get triggered like I used to in the past, where people cutting me off or doing something rude, is because I have an identity statement before I jump into my car. I know who I am when I'm driving. I know who I am in business. I know who I am when I'm with my wife. I know who I am when I'm with my friends. I know who, and I remind myself, because I have these things written down prior to going into the event. It is a game changer. A game changer. And then people start seeing you as your authentic self because you're choosing who to be in the moment of now. It's a fascinating way to approach life.
It reminds me of something I'm really trying to incorporate finally, is to do everything with intention. So I go into a situation, or just leaving the house, getting into the car. So I would try and remind myself what I want from this situation now, and like you said, who I want to be. But it's taken me a while to actually apply it. So, but I'm getting there, so that's good.
Yes, you are. It's who you are. You're getting there.
Oh, amazing, David. Is there anything you'd like to say to conclude our conversation today?
If you really want to really focus on that aspect that really is going to change your experience of this place, if you really want to change this place, then changing your experience of this place is the best you have. Because you're not really going to, yes, you can say that you're going to change this and you can make this stuff up. But if you really want to have an experiential change of this, then working on you is the greatest gift you can do for this planet. Because when you're happy and you're fulfilled, you bring something else to the table. Then when you're angry and frustrated and stressed, you still show up to the party. But if I'm angry, stressed, and frustrated, guess what I'm bringing to the table? More confusion, more chaos. Working on you isn't this bad thing that we've talked about. Working on you only to take care of you may be an experience that we might call bad, but working on you so you can truly be in service of others is a life of fulfillment. And that's what we say we're after. This is a pathway.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time, David. It's been such a pleasure, and I'm really looking forward to book 2 of Swords of Illumination. And I would love one day to see your camp, your Samurai Summit. That would be amazing. So, yeah, really honored. Thank you for your time, and maybe we'll do it again someday. That would be amazing. All right.
Absolutely love that.
All the best, and thank you again.
Thanks so
Thank you
much.
everyone for tuning in, and I'll leave all the details on how to connect with David in the show notes. So thank you everyone. Have a good rest of your day, and see you next time. Bye for now.